This is a public meeting of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. The date is February 16th, 2017, and the time is 9:41. The location is the Hilton Los Angeles Airport, 5711 West Century Boulevard, La Jolla Ballroom, Los Angeles, California, 90045. The board's paramount responsibility is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public through licensure, education, and enforcement in chiropractic care. Please be aware that this meeting is being audio and video recorded for live webcast. Please turn off or silence all cell phones. We will now take roll call. Dr. Azzolino, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Heather Dane.
Here.
Mr. Ruffino.
Here.
Sergio Azzolino here. Dr. Algener.
Present.
Dr. Corey Lickman.
Here.
Dr. McLean.
Here.
Dr. John Rosa.
Here.
Thank you.
All members are present.
I'd like everybody to stand for the pledge. Mr. Ruffino, would you lead us in the pledge?
Place your right hand and begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody. It's a pleasure and an honor to be elected as board chair for this year. I want to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Azzolino for his previous work as board chair, and also congratulate Mr. Ruffino as our new board vice chair and Dr. Azzolino as our secretary. I look forward to serving in this position and working with my fellow board members towards achieving the board's goals and fulfilling our mandate of consumer protection. We have many opportunities on the horizon which will require hard work in the coming year. Accomplishing our goals will require commitment and participation by all of us. Some of the specific achievements we'll be working toward include testifying before the Joint Legislative Sunset Review Committee on February 27th, moving our 9 pending regulations through the regulatory process, achieving the goals and objectives identified in our proposed 2017 through 2019 strategic plan, continuing to work jointly with our stakeholders on projects to establish minimum requirements for CE providers, updating curriculum requirements, and expanding the board's outreach efforts. At our October meeting, there was a discussion regarding committee assignments. As a result of my conversations with board members and in consultation with Mr. Pulio, I rearranged committee assignments. In addition, I've restructured the committees to achieve efficiencies by eliminating overlapping jurisdiction and duplicative responsibilities. I want to thank my fellow board members for entrusting me with this responsibility. I also want to thank Mr. Pulio and all of the board staff for their ongoing support and commitment to consumer protection. Finally, I want to thank the board's trusted legal counsel, Mr. Walker, for keeping us out of trouble. Thank you. So next, approval of the minutes. We'll start with the October 14th, 2016 meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept them.
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have some discussion.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions in terms of follow-up. And this is on page 3, starting with. At the top where we suggested that the board establish an executive committee with the chair and vice chair to review and restructure the way the statistical information is provided. And then the next one said that I have some thoughts on that. I did not provide that to Dr. Dane and Dr. Azzolino, so I'll take that as an action item to do so. I just wanted to make sure that plans were still underway to revisit that.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And the next one down is 2/3 of the way down, responding that the board would work with Solid to start processing, process mapping and meeting with DCA Information Services to determine what information technology services. So I just want to make sure that was built into the strategic plan, because that to me seems like a strategic plan component. So my suggestion is that that be built into the strategic plan. A couple of others. I do want to call out that, this is on page 7, I have a conflict with the May 16th date. Remember, we set these dates in October with the auspices that my teaching assignment had not been assigned. I personally have a conflict for that May 16th meeting. I teach on Tuesdays in the spring. So if we're unable to make it, if we're unable to move it, I just want to be clear about the fact that I will not be there.
And I looked into that. We didn't establish an alternate date at the meeting in October so we don't have a backup date for May. But if the board wants to today, you can discuss potential alternate dates for that.
It's up to you guys. I'm just letting you know that, and I said it with the caveat that Tuesdays are always hard for me, so we don't necessarily need to reschedule. I just want to let you know I will not be there. Then the other thing is under 8 for future agenda items, this was under, Mr. Pulio recommended referring the discussion regarding start times for petition hearings to the Government Affairs Committee. Just want to make sure that that's on a future agenda for the Government Affairs Committee since I'm no longer on it.
I'm sorry, which one is that?
Under
Page 8.
future agenda items, page 8,
Oh, page 8, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mr. Pulio recommended referring the start time for petitioner hearings to the Government Affairs Committee, so I'm
Got
just
it.
making sure that it's on the radar for an agenda. Those are all the discussion items I have.
Any public comment? Right. I'll call for the vote.
Dr. Dane?
Yes.
Mr. Rufino?
Yes.
Dr. Azzalino, yes. Dr. Algener?
Yes.
Dr. Lickman?
Yes.
Dr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Rosa?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move to the minutes for the next meeting of January 12th, 2017.
I move that we approve the minutes for January 12th, 2017.
Any discussion? I just have my name spelled wrong. So, on the second page, right at the top. Dr. Azzalino,
Oh,
the very top thing.
transposed.
Yeah, just a couple letters. Any other discussion? Any public comment? I'll call for the vote.
Dr. Dane?
Yes?
Rufino?
Yes.
Azzalino, yes. Algener?
Yes.
Lickman?
Yes.
McLean?
Yes.
Rosa?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move on to the executive officer's report. Mr. Pulio.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, I'll going through administration, budgets, licensing, and enforcement as always, and I have a couple of updates to provide to the board. As far as administration, we have 2 new employees. Andrea Mendez, since the last meeting, has accepted our staff services analyst position in the compliance unit, and she started with us about a month ago and doing a great job. She's also helping out with regulations. She's working with Marcus on regulations. In addition to Andrea, we also hired Joanne Nakami. She's a retired annuitant. She was a scientist with the Bureau of Electronic and Appliance Repair and Home Furnishings. And so she's done a lot of work with regulations in that role and recently retired, and so she's already hit the ground running. So now we have 3 people focusing on regs, and I'm hoping that we're going to get some momentum going and start moving these regs through more quickly. The process still takes a long time, but at least we're able to get more into the process this way. And finally, we hired Star Jennings as the office technician. We had a vacant office technician position, and so she recently started with our office. So at the moment, we're fully staffed. And I think that's the first time I've been able to say that since I worked for the board. So we'll enjoy it
Right,
until somebody
exactly.
else gets noticed. So on to the budget. If nobody has any admin questions. If you look at the fund condition, we had the opportunity to meet with DCA's budget office a week or 2 ago and went over our fund condition and our projections. And as you can see, our fund condition is going down. Part of that is attributed to to the loan that we're paying back to Bureau of Automatic Repair. We're paying back at least $250,000 a year, which certainly has a big impact on our budget. But we're also looking at revenue and expenditures going forward, and we don't have enough revenue coming in at this point, and and to keep our fund solvent for more than a few years. The projections look a little worse than they actually are because they project that we're going to expend our full budget allotment, which we never do. So we'd be able to go out, year or two longer than what the budget office projects. But I just wanted to give the boards a heads up. We have a process in place where we're going to be working on options for resolving this matter, but I just wanted to give the board a heads up that there's a possibility we may have to look into some fee increases to balance the budget and keep our fund condition solvent. So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about that, but that'll just be something that we'll be working on at the staff level, and I'll keep the board apprised.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have we committed to what the amount will be of the loan repayment for this next year? Is it going to be $250, or are we looking at alternative amounts?
Luckily we have the flexibility. We because we were going to at the end of last year we were going to transfer another $250,000. It didn't get posted last year, so we technically could post that this year and it would count for this year. And we have the option at the end of the year when we look at our projections, if it looks like we're not going to use our full budget allotment and we'll have enough left to put on and to pay in the loan, we'll do that. And so we may pay more than $250,000 this year, but we'll definitely be able to pay the $250,000. And in fact, we're already doing that because one of the allotments from last year didn't get posted until this fiscal year. So it sounds funny, but we have a lot of flexibility with this with this particular loan.
Right,
so,
exactly.
So we generally in the spring when we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year, that's what we'll look at and see if we can pay back more than the $250 for this year.
So we'll have some more guidance at the May meeting.
At the May meeting, we'll know if we'll likely be able to transfer another $250.
Okay, and are we still? I still have concerns over the pro rata amounts that are increasing from 185 to 240. So this is the under expenditures 9,900, the general administrative expenditures pro rata.
Yeah, and that's our portion of what the department pays to other state agencies,
right.
Control agencies, for the services they provide to agencies. So,
I mean, presumably that shouldn't be changing that significantly because
No.
our service level has not changed, and so I'm happy to have those kinds of discussions with DCA or with finance or whomever needs to be part of that discussion. But to go from 0 to 180 to 240, and especially year over year, 185 to 240, when nothing has changed, I have some serious concerns over the calculations behind that and the rationale that could be used against that. So I would hope other board members would have equal levels of concern about that component, because when you're talking about fund solvency and you're talking about revenues and you're talking about potentially a fee increase, let's explore and make sure that the expenses are tight before you go down the avenue of fee increases, or simultaneous to going down the path of fee increases. Making sure that, because the challenge is that we don't have any control over that. That's just what we're given, the pro rata amount that we have to pay for all of the services that go throughout DCA. So I think it begs the question, this is what I teach in my classes, you better have an understanding of the allocation methodology that is used for that if you're just going to be incurring these expenses, particularly if they're increasing year over year.
And who do we talk to about that, Robert?
well, we can start with DCA's budget office, and they won't. They can give us some explanation of the pro rata we paid to DCA, but then beyond that, there's because there's the whole network of departments that do things that benefit other departments, and they have to be compensated for that. So there's other control agencies, Department of General Services, Department of Finance, so, various agencies that do work that impacts other state agencies,
Correct.
and we have to pay money to them. And so, and it's divided or it's figured on a pro rata basis,
Right.
the same way that our share of
Right.
the expenditures that DCA has. So we'll have to, they may not, I'm sorry, I'm going long-winded, but they may not be able to explain to us exactly where all that money's going, but they can certainly show the methodology for determining our specific share of that. And
Well, I would hope they could get reasonably close. It's like someone giving you a bill and saying, pay this.
yeah.
We're not going to tell you what it's for, but you can pay it.
Yeah, so I mean, probably Department of Finance would be the one, if they do provide an answer, Department of Finance would be the department that would explain where that money's all going and how it's figured out, how it's divided among state agencies.
Okay.
I love this stuff because I like to hold people accountable. So my suggestion is that if you want some help as part of that discussion, let me know.
Okay, well, we'll start with the budget office.
I got a quick question, Robert. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I know we don't have a budget analyst, right? But we
Not on staff.
Not on
but
staff,
we have,
but we-
DCA has a.
we have a. Is there a DCA budget analyst that is assigned specific to our board?
Yes, there.
So
She has a portfolio of boards. Ours is one of them, and then there's managers over her that that are monitoring as well. And we so we speak with them on a fairly regular basis, and we meet with them.
Who's the liaison? Is that you, the liaison from the board with the budget analyst, or is that?
Myself and Linda?
Okay.
Linda monitors our expenditures, and so and then she communicates with the budget
Yeah.
office.
So I think that's where the discussion needs to start. The budget analyst, will be able to provide, some general or at least the rationale, and then that's when it needs to come back to us, or perhaps to you, Robert, to where if we take issues or if we have concerns over the allocation, or even paying for services that we don't even get, like.
It's hard to quantify. I mean, like if we're looking at our DCA pro rata, it's really hard to quantify what we're getting and not getting. Definitely, we don't utilize all of the services that DCA provides, but we overutilize.
But we gotta pay. I get that.
Yeah,
like
so
AGS.
there's
Right,
a certain
it's just-
there's a certain fudge factor where they figure it's going to come out in the wash. We may not use as much HR services, but we may use more, like we use their publications office a lot.
Sure.
We certainly use the legal
Sure,
office a
sure,
lot,
of
and that's
course.
not divided out. We pay. That's just part of our flat pro
But-
rata.
I think I have no problem with the direct costs. It's the indirect costs that I have concern about, and particularly the allocation methodology, because every time 3 different times I've been with you to go to that DCA meeting where they talk about how these pro rata accounts are, and it's very general. It's a very general discussion, and I'm just suggesting we dive deep into it now, particularly if you're on the verge of considering fee increases. You're going to be held accountable for making sure that your expenses are
And
in
we
line.
will be held accountable. We
That's it.
won't be able to successfully move a fee increase through if there's any question about our expenditures and whether they're necessary. And that was
I
one of the things
totally
I was talking to the budget office about is because we're looking at doing something through regulation. This is just a consideration at this point, but doing something through regulation, and that's a hard hurdle to get over to get a regulation for a fee increase approved.
Right.
And so we'll take a very close look at all of this.
What many of our boards have done was to invite someone from the budget office
That's
to
what.
attend one of the meetings and to explain, how the pro rata is used and answer any of your questions. Because I'm sure that if Robert carries the information back, you're still going to have many questions.
Well, I think we need to particularly be accountable to the stakeholders because remember the reason for putting us under DCA was to save cost,
Yes.
not increase cost.
Yeah,
so,
and again, I have to emphasize that these were costs that we would have had regardless of whether we were under DCA because we were still paying these general statewide pro rata when we were an independent board. So this, I believe, it is more efficient being under DCA, but there are these costs that we're we are essentially asked to accept. You know, they're just they're determined at a much higher level, and so we can ask for clarification. I don't know how much clarification we'll be able to get, but we certainly can.
May I add, I think it's an excellent suggestion that, the council just made, is to invite either the budget analyst at DCA to come, perhaps. I don't know if we need an actual motion. I don't think it's
No,
necessary.
no,
I'll invite them.
But I think we
Yeah.
should get agendize for next meeting, and that way
Yeah.
we will have an opportunity, because correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, in some cases, like you said, these decisions are made at a higher level, and we sort of are just like DGS pro rata cost. We don't have no choice. Whatever it is assessed, we have to pay. But so that we have a better understanding, so we can articulate when the time comes, and the stakeholders will have a better understanding as to where the expenditure are going.
Yeah.
I think it would be wise for us to put that on the agenda, invite someone down to talk and go over exactly, the formula, the generalities, and so on and so forth.
And the May meeting will be a perfect opportunity for that. Not only will we be closer to the end of the fiscal year and we'll have a better idea of our projections for this year, we also will be in Sacramento. The meeting will be held at DCA headquarters, and so it'll be very convenient for them because they're generally happy to come if we want them to come to a meeting. They're generally happy to come, and it's always more convenient if it's in Sacramento. So there's no reason why we won't be able to have somebody at the next meeting.
In addition to them explaining all of the pro rata, it might be beneficial for us to just find out what some of the services are that we might not know about and be able to utilize as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that they go over. They have annual meetings and they invite the board chair and the board EO, and they, I'm familiar with the services that the department provides, but they try to give an overview of all the various services that the department provides, and you can ask questions about what they do. And,
Okay.
Just as a reminder, if we're inviting them to that May meeting and we do not change the date, I will not be there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And on to licensing. No major activity or anomalies to report. We have our monthly total number of licensees from the beginning of the fiscal year through the end of December. And as you can see, we're still down in the low 13,000s. I don't see any indication that the number of new licensees or total licensees is increasing. But other than that, there's nothing, unless somebody has questions about any specific numbers on this page.
I wanted to ask, if I may,
Yes.
how is the attendance in chiropractic colleges nowadays?
From an enrollment perspective,
Yes.
I would say the last little bit has been down, but the number of interested potential applicants is currently rising.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know the last time we checked, and we'll keep checking in, the last time we checked, enrollment across the country in chiropractic colleges was down in the last few years. So that certainly is an indicator of what's going to be the case with our number of licensees. If those numbers don't increase, then we won't likely see an increase in licensees. And then finally on to enforcement. We have our usual statistics here, and going back for 5 fiscal years, and the current fiscal year is in the right-hand column. And that projects through February 8th. So that's this year through February 8th, so it's not a complete year. And the enforcement program's running very well, closing cases timely. There's nothing out of the ordinary to report here unless anybody has any questions.
It seems, Robert, in comparison to the complaints received and the accusations filed, that there's a proportionate increase in accusations filed. Is there a reason for that?
That fluctuates. I've looked at that in the past and recently. That just kind of fluctuates, and it kind of depends on, sometimes it just depends on when we're sending. We may send a few cases over to DOJ, and some of them may be longer, and they take a little longer, and sometimes we just happen to, certain years we file more accusations. It just seems we have a few more of more egregious cases, and then another year we'll have very few, and it'll be, so there's nothing specific, there's nothing specific to point to with that, if we were to see dramatic increases or decreases in anything, then we'd look closer and see what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, if you have any more questions about enforcement, I just wanted to announce some good news. I applied for and was granted a scholarship to attend the FCLB conference in Orlando this year. So, so I'll be joining Dr. Dang, lucky Dr. Dang. And so, yeah, so they award up to $2,500 for expenses, and so I submitted, I answered all the questions about what we're doing and why it would be a benefit for them to have me in California participate in the conference, and I got an email back saying congratulations. So,
I'm
yeah.
so glad.
So, yeah, that should be.
Thank you, Robert. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Is this the first time? No, this isn't the first time you've been there. No.
no, I'd been there 2009. I think.
Right,
It's been a
but
while.
it's been a while,
Yeah.
right?
So.
Oh, that's so good.
I'll still have to submit to DCA for out-of-state travel
Right.
approval, but it shouldn't be a problem getting approved because
Right.
it won't be any cost to our licensees
Exactly.
or taxpayers.
Oh, that's so great, Robert. Good.
And that's all I have to report.
I just
Any
have some-
questions for me?
Under tab 5F,
Yeah,
are we
we
going
have
to get to the
I'm sorry.
strategic
Yeah,
plan?
strategic
I'm
plan.
sorry, I forgot. I'm going on. So this is the strategic plan that that the board approved. I think this is the first time we've provided it in print in this version, so the board members had an opportunity to look at it, and if we want to go through, I don't know how you want to move through this. If you want to go through each thing and discuss, or if you just have specific questions
I just have
about
some other questions.
That's fine. You can start and then I'll.
Whatever.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing is on the first page, we just need an adopted date. It's blank. Second is on page 6, starting on page 6. My suggestion is that we add, I think this initial column is an estimated completion date, and then I think we need an actual completion date, so that would be like a whole nother column or something. I don't know. Right now, I think last year or last time we didn't have 2 columns, but my suggestion is just that we have some sort of way to track when we thought we were going to do it and then when it actually got done. The other thing that I might want to suggest is that we add a date to the bottom of every page that when it was last updated. So it's clear, because this document's going to be living for 3 years, so knowing when it was last updated I think would be helpful.
Those are good suggestions. I like the idea of adding another column.
I like that too.
Last year, what we were doing is, as the committees were meeting and deciding that date wasn't realistic, we
Right.
were adjusting the date, but we weren't really documenting unless you went back into the old
Right,
copies,
exactly. So
what our targeted date was.
So if you just add another column that says estimated, completion date versus actual completion date, I think that would be sufficient. Then my only other comment is under section 5 for organizational development, starting on page 15. All of these in this whole section are for for Q1 of 2017, or things that have already been completed, except for one of them. So I just want to kind of make sure that that's realistic, and if that needs to be adjusted, that we do so. Those are my comments.
So for 5.1, Robert,
Five,
the
okay, yeah.
Page
on page
15.
16.
16.
Sure. 16, okay.
I don't know.
I have. It might be 15 in your.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So are those things that you're currently doing? Is that why they're all Q1 of this year? Because most of these is, you're the responsible party for most of these.
These are, I think because we put those because, I don't like the completion date actually, that's,
Right.
because these are ongoing things, so certainly these are actions that have been taken. And I'm I've already initiated all of this.
Maybe you say
Um,
initiation date for one column and then
And
completion
completion
date is the next column.
Yeah, so these are things that I'll be doing on an ongoing basis with all of the board staff.
So this could say initiation date and then right next to it could be completion date.
And so that brings me, because I had questions about section 5.3 as well.
Okay,
So these are, they're all for Q1 2017.
and
But we haven't heard
again, that's
anything about them.
initiation date. I have one of our staff people, Brianna, working with Solid to schedule the training I want to start with the kind of team building training for staff.
Right.
I do want to engage Solid as well for something involving all of the board members,
Right.
which we'll have to coordinate with the board meeting most likely. So that we haven't started yet, but the staff training we're working on dates to do that.
And so when you get dates, you'll update us when we
Yes.
do reports on the strategic
Yes.
plan.
Can I ask a question on a date?
Can you come to the microphone?
Where's the mic?
Either take those. Okay. I'm just wondering.
And state your name, please.
Oh, sorry. Jonathan Egan. Just wondering if 1.1.3 and 1.1.4, if that's just a typo on the date as well. Where it says Q4 2014.
Hold on.
On page 6. The date.
And at 1.4, the reason that's 2016, because we
2014.
already completed some of those in that, so that meet with DCA OIS to discuss.
I think he's talking
One
about
point 1.3.
1.1.3 and 1.1.4.
I'm sorry.
Right. Listed as 2014 as the dates, I think he was saying.
Should those be Q4 16 or some other date?
That's a carryover from the last, that's probably why it has that from the last strategic plan. So
that
and
completes
we're, and I don't know what we would put at this date, Dr. Dane, as this date, because we're still waiting on CCE to give us,
Yeah, so this is something that we started working on in 2014, and CCE was supposed to be working on this meta-analysis project that we are still waiting to see
Okay.
the results of. So that's why that's kind of on hold, because CCE hasn't gotten back to us with any of the information. So
I'm hoping we can get some insight when we attend the FCLB conference, and I'm sure CCE will be there, and so, hopefully they'll be giving an update on what's happening, and we'll be able to get an idea of what, if anything, is going to happen on that front.
Okay, but those two are not complete. The completion dates are in the past, like 2 years.
Yeah, they're not complete.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
yeah, that's a confusing header, so we're going to change that to, initiation date and add another column for a completion date. Yeah.
I do think, are there any more public comment? So just as a suggestion for 3 years from now, when you do the strategic plan again, I do think that items that are carried forward from the previous strategic plans should somehow be designated that it's a carry forward. Whether it's ongoing or it's an item that didn't get, completed or whatever it be, there should be some sort of way of identifying that that's a carry forward item.
Mhm. And I think that 1.1.3 might be a little bit misleading, because one of the things that came into discussion with was we were trying to talk about international students and how we can make a pathway for licensure in California, and that's what we're waiting for CCE from. So that might be why you're confused on that one. It's not clear. Because it was a carryover, it's not clear that that's what we were talking about.
Any other questions or comments regarding the,
Thank you.
I want,
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I wanted to just point out a couple of things for some of the committees. If you haven't, well, it's, the new committee lists are in here and we'll talk about that, but I'm going to encourage you as your committees to look through here and see what is applicable to your committee. And can we get, I have a strategic plan that has responsible parties on it, but it doesn't look like anybody else does. So can we get new strategic plans?
Yeah,
the
we'll
rest of the
email,
board
yeah, we'll
members?
email to all the
Yeah.
board members
That's an electronic copy.
yeah, we'll send it electronically to all the board members. And if you want us to send you a hard copy, just let us know and we'll send you a hard copy. But that was kind of too much information for, it's like, not that we need to hide it, but it's just that most people don't care, want to know who's doing what internally with the board, so we didn't include that in the packet.
Well, so you're going to get a new strategic plan that has responsible parties on it. So for your committee, look and see what you're responsible for, and when you plan your committee meetings, start tackling items on the board, like the Governmental Affairs Committee, 3.1.1, just for example. That has an estimated initiation date of Q1 2017. We're changing completion date to initiation date. So that's something that will need to be on your agenda fairly quickly. Again, for public relations, there's some items in here about getting a master calendar about meetings and events going on with stakeholders that we may or may not want to participate with. So those are all things that should start being initiated in your committees pretty quickly. So when you get the new strategic plan, look and see if your committee is the responsible party and start working on those in order of the initiation dates that are listed in the strategic plan. That's my suggestion.
We did receive a hard copy, I believe, didn't we? I don't know why I'm
You
thinking.
may,
it.
to be
That had
honest,
the
I
But maybe in the
recall if
preliminary,
that's
yeah.
what, because as we're working on the strategic plan and it gets, like we have a draft copy and revises, sometimes it's hard to keep track of what we've disseminated. But yeah, we'll just as a precaution send out an electronic copy to all of the board members, and if with those assignments on there. And if anybody wants a hard copy as well, we can just let us know and we'll send you one.
And just one change, just so the licensing and CE committee knows, on 1.5.1, this is a project that Dr. Eldrener and I have already started. And so on the responsible party, it says right now licensing committee chair, but that's something that Dr. Eldrener and I are going to take care of. So you can take that off your list for your committee.
So I like actually, and I totally concur with the idea that Dr. Dan just suggested, that the committee chairs start looking and align or add to their agenda some of these items as they relate to their committee. But I'd like to also ask the staff assigned to the committee if they could facilitate that process by being proactive and identified, from the strategic plan, identify the steps and set it on the agenda already, so that way, we can work in concert to move forward. So it's not a formal request, I suppose, Robert, but I'm sure it's implied, that the staff will take a look at it and will agendize, any items.
Yeah, I'm going to meet with, Dr. Dane and I will meet to discuss any things that we need to do as far as getting the committees going, because shortly after this meeting, we want to start scheduling committee meetings and get them meeting. And I'll meet with the staff liaisons to each committee and make sure that they're reaching out to you and going through and looking for issues in the strategic plan that need to be added to the agendas for those committees.
Yeah, absolutely. And while on that subject, I already reached out to my liaison and sort of set aside a time where we can chit chat a little bit. But I think just in case we fail because of our busy schedule, feel free, staff, to reach out to the committee chairs and to sort of force us to take a look and map out, the next step with respect to agenda items and meeting dates.
Well, what I would hope would happen on the committee agendas, instead of just saying strategic plan, it's going to identify certain areas.
We'll pull
specific
out
to
these,
what's
whatever is going
needing to be worked on
discussed.
that quarter.
So if it's
Okay.
1.5.1,
Great.
that'll be spelled out on the agenda.
Great.
And then, sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't have any more of a strategic plan. Before we move on, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget sunset. I have to touch
Okay,
on
let's
sunset.
finish strategic plan first. Anybody else have any comments on the strategic plan? Any other public comment on the strategic plan? Okay, now we can move to sunset.
Okay, this will be quick. So we were notified that the sunset hearing is scheduled for the end of this month, February 27th. We're still waiting for the report from the Joint Legislative Sunset Review Committee, their findings and any final questions they may have. So far, they've contacted the staff at those committees, has contacted us with technical questions regarding budgets and stats and things like that, but they haven't had any substantive issues that they've raised with us. So at this point, I'm not anticipating that they'll surprise us with anything, but we're still waiting for that final issue paper from them, and there may be some questions that they'll want us to address at the hearing. So I'll let the appropriate board members know as soon as we hear anything. But the hearing will be on February 27th.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Robert.
Just a quick question. Who will attend that meeting? Dr. Dane and Robert?
Yes, I'll definitely be there. Dr. Dane will definitely be there. Typically, the board chair represents the board at those hearings, and so Dr. Dane will be presenting. I'll be there with her. Any other board members who want to attend are welcome to attend, though. That's Heather would likely introduce you from the dais while she's testifying, but we wouldn't need other board members to go up to the dais, just Dr. Dane. So, but I encourage all of you to come because it's a good experience, and if you get there early or stay later, you can see, compare our hearing with other boards' hearings and see how it went. And it's a good thing to observe.
Will we have any idea what time we're scheduled for? I didn't think so.
As it gets closer, we may have, because we'll see what the order they put us on the agenda, and that may give us a clue. But you don't know if the sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Right.
You don't know if the board that went before you is going to go excessively long, if they have big issues or so. It's hard to gauge. It's one of those wait and see
That's fine.
days.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to number 6, ratification of approved license applications. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? I'll call for the vote.
Dane,
Yes?
Rufino,
Yes.
Azalino, yes. Algener,
Yes.
Lickman,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Rosa.
Item number 7, ratification of approved continuing education providers. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Any discussion? For those following along, this is exhibit number 7. Any public comment? I'll call for the vote.
Dane,
Yes?
Rufino,
Yes.
Azalino, yes. Algener,
Yes.
Lickman,
Yes.
McLean, and Rosa.
Yeah.
Yes. Over the law firm.
Tab number 8, ratification of denied license applications. There is none. So we'll move to item number 9, restructure and assignment to BCE committees. So our new committee structure will be licensing and continuing education will be Dr. McLean and Dr. Elginer. The staff liaison is going to be Brianna. Enforcement committee will be Dr. Azzolino and Dr. Rosa, with Andrea as the staff liaison. And government and public affairs will be Mr. Ruffino and Dr. Lickman. And the significant changes, public affairs got moved from licensing and continuing education onto government affairs. Any questions or discussion?
I just have a general question.
Yes.
This is the first time that since I've been on the board that we only have 2 members of each committee.
Yeah.
What do we do if we disagree?
Talk to the board chair and talk to the executive
No, I mean
officer.
sincerely,
No,
like there's a reason why, and that's okay, we can all agree to disagree,
Yeah.
but, in terms of bringing things forward to the board, if
So
you
the-
bring it forward on behalf of committee, that's a different situation than if you are just bringing it forward. So I'm asking procedurally.
I noted that, and my interpretation of that was that if the committee is not, it will not be making a recommendation.
Right.
It would come forward to the board without a recommendation, and then in that case, it will be adjudicated by the full board.
Yeah.
That was sort of the way I interpreted it. I'm not sure exactly what the intent, probably to make it more efficient, I suspect, but.
There's a number of things. One of the things is that with such a small board, having 3 members on 3 committees, it becomes complicated, and you have members that are having to participate sometimes in 2 meetings a day, or one day and one the next day, and so this way there's you have to attend fewer meetings. Also, I look at the committees as being more informal, like if the board has something specific that it wants to research or work on, it would give it to the committee to do some of the detail work. And so it's not so much that the committees, because this is the way it actually works and functions, is it's not that they're going and making a decision and recommending that to the board, they're figuring things out and then suggesting a solution to the board, or working on, say, language for a regulation or something like that. And it just seems more efficient for 2-member committee. It's easier to schedule and get on the calendar, since we have to notice them 10 days in advance. It realizes a lot of efficiencies. I have to say, this is new for us, and so it may not work out as well as we're intending, and the board may want to down the line go back to 3-member committees, but I think it would be worth giving this a try.
One of the things I see as a huge benefit to having 2-member committees is 2 people can talk to each other. And nothing gets decided in a committee, so nothing is going to be taken away from public notice. The public is always going to know what's going on. But when there's 3-member committees, you can't just talk to the people on your committee. And so everything drags from meeting to meeting to meeting, because that's the only time you can talk to each other. So I think it's a benefit in that way as well, and it'll give committee members an ability to concentrate on one committee, like Robert said, instead of being spread among sometimes 2 committees. And if there's a disagreement, that's obviously a significant matter that maybe is better served being exposed to the whole board for discussion or further discussion.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm definitely, please don't misunderstand, I'm not saying we shouldn't try it, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the nice thing about a 3-member committee is that you're able to get some consensus.
Mhm.
That's all I'm suggesting, but
Yeah.
let's give it a go.
Yeah, let's give it a go
Yeah,
and see what happens. I find that
I'm
we
okay.
agree
I'm-
more than we disagree.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think we do too.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
agree the vast majority of time, but we
Right.
do have
We do,
disagreements.
yeah.
That's fine.
And if it's
Okay.
enough for the committee to disagree on, I think it's enough for the full board to, have a deeper discussion on.
If I may, just have one additional comment. I should have made it earlier, when we talked about the sunset review. But I know Robert has encouraged all board members to make an effort, if they can, to appear and to witness and to see the process. And the chair would obviously would be there testifying on our behalf. But I think the government and public affairs, because what we are tasked and because of our duty, especially to address any audit or sunset review deficiencies, I think if we can, I think that particular committee should make even an extra effort to
I
be
agree.
Present if it's all possible.
I agree.
So just wanted to make that quick comment. I'm not sure what Dr. Corey's schedule is going to be, or actually I need to check my schedule. But I think we should be there, at least if anything morally provide the moral support behind the scenes.
The only thing is I'd caution you,
Yes.
not to discuss, if you will, attend the sunset review, don't discuss it with what took place with Sergio. Because then there'll be 3 members all of a sudden engaged in discussing issues that are presently before the board, or may be in the future before the board. So then it's a back and key violation.
Yeah, I would advise,
When
and
will
correct
the-
me if this won't work, but I would advise anybody who has any discussions they want to have about sunset issues or sunset review to direct those only to Dr. Dane as the chair and communicate with her. And so if whether or not you attend the hearing, you're attending as an observer and you're not an active participant in that particular hearing. And so, it's best not to discuss it if you do attend with anybody other than Dr. Dane.
I already mentioned to her that I wanted to attend, so we'll figure that out, if there's a role or not.
Any other discussion? All right. Let's move on to item number 10, update on pending regulations. Marcus?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
If you turn to the second page, the regulation prioritization chart, these updates will be fairly quick. So the regulation that we have currently, the application for licensure, in January or late last year, the DCA director, they initiated a new process through which they would evaluate regulations. They're making the review that DCA would normally do at the end of the process. They moved it to the front in order to obtain some efficiencies and some quality control issues. So they've tried to find a way to make the process better. So our application for licensure regulation, since it started a little earlier, is not subject to that process. And as you know, we initiated that over a year ago. But luckily for us, it's still going. The director issued an extension letter and is currently under review at agency. So it's not dead. We hope to be able to submit it to OAL hopefully in the next month or so. So it's still there. We still need to go through the process. It's not dead yet. The next regulation that we have is CPEI. We've initiated that, and this regulation is subject to the new process. So it's under an extensive review at the department right now. It's with the budget office. So at the end of this new review process, it may take 4 to 6 months, but then after the review through agency DCA, we can submit it to OAL for initiating the 45-day comment period. Normally we do it at the front end, but at this point in the new process, we will do it at the back end after they do a really extensive review. So we're hoping that this speeds up the process and makes for a better product in the end. And then, as Robert stated earlier, we have new staff. And so there are a couple other reg packages that are now actually under development at the board. I'm currently working on the disciplinary guidelines. We have staff working on the uniform standards, and we'll also have staff working on the delegation of authority to the executive officer. So as Robert stated, with more hands working on these regulations, we hope to, in a short period of time, make some significant process for you guys. Do you guys have any questions?
3, then 1 and 2.
Marcus, where are you at with the CPR?
So I've developed the package and submitted it for review. So it's currently with the DCA budget office under review.
Okay.
What's
Oh, CPR. I'm sorry.
Yeah, CPR. Yeah.
CPR hasn't been started. But again, we hope to make some progress. It's a little bit further down the list. I would say if we start that probably maybe next year.
Is the regulation that's already written though, right? As far as from before and then?
We have language, yes. So
Yeah.
the regulatory language was drafted, but then all of the supporting documentation that we need to do to start the rulemaking process, which is significant, that's yet to be done. And we've been focusing on the A priorities, and not that the ones in B and C aren't important, but they weren't our top priorities, and the A priority ones were more complex regulations. That one, when we get to it, the CPR will go very quickly. I don't imagine it'll be controversial, and it's not complicated, so that should go pretty quickly. And now that we have the resources focused on regulations, hopefully, within a year we'll have knocked out the majority of these, or at
And
least
just
have them well underway.
And just as a reminder, the packages in Group A were all legislatively mandated, so we have to do those first. They're a priority. Just so you know.
So once we get the CPR stuff done, then it'll move through pretty quick is what we're saying, right?
That's the hope, yeah. I mean, a lot of these packages, some are more complex and they take longer, but the CPR will be pretty straightforward. So once we get started, it shouldn't take very long.
And that'll tie in with continuing education, which is another issue that we're working on the revisions to the continuing education, auditing, and as well as the providers. They're looking at provider credentials, and so we'll probably, when we get to that point, we may do one kind of omnibus type CE regulation and incorporate all these CE related things and try to move that through. So it might not be a bad thing to wait on that and then deal with it collectively.
I have a question, Marcus. On the uniform standards for substance abusing licensees. So this is something we've been talking about for a long time, and I'm confused because we reviewed packets and we voted on the trigger. Am I thinking of the right
Trigger
thing?
language,
Yeah, the trigger language. So it says rulemaking not yet started. So give me more detail. I'm confused on. I thought that was something that the language was given to us and saying here it is. You guys have to work this into your regs. So
There are multiple things that happen. So you guys will vote on language, but that's just the first part of the process. So you guys vote on it, and that's what we have to work on. But a whole package has to be developed. And so when it says not yet started, that means that we have language, but staff hasn't looked at it, and staff isn't in the process of developing this package for review. So that's just what it means. But we've recently, this was February 6th, and so this package has since been started. Joanne's working on it. So we're actually in the process. She has information, and she's currently developing it.
I guess what I'm confused about is since it was a legislative mandate and there was this whole well-written packet of information.
And so one of the other
what are you adding to it?
So one other thing that happened was initially I think the board had decided to go with the TPEI and uniform standards together. And so what's happened since is we've gotten council to do it as a separate package.
Actually, it was the disciplinary guidelines and the uniform standards that were initially we were told that they should be, should or could be part of our disciplinary guidelines, and then we were advised that it couldn't. And I know some boards have already, and you probably have some perspective about other boards and issues that they've had, because a lot of boards have been going through this with the uniform standards where powers that be or OAL are saying, no, you can't combine these, or so.
This is the first time I've heard this. because all of my health boards that have promulgated the regulations for uniform standards include them in the disciplinary guidelines.
See, and that was it, because we did a
That's what
lot of
Christine's-
work, and
That's what
Dixie,
we were
do you
going down
have,
this path.
do you have some recollection of this? Because we did a lot of work on this, and we kind of got stopped short because we were told we had to go in another direction. And it may have been when we had the transition from you to Christy, and so that's part of what stopped us on this.
Because I do know that one of Christie's clients did in fact promulgate 2 separate documents. So that may have come
Yeah.
from her.
It's kind of a perfect
But
storm.
it should be in the same document.
We had that, and then we had other competing regs, and we had that nightmare application reg and the out of state.
The health clinic.
Free.
Free health clinic.
Free,
one.
free healthcare, and so those took an inordinate amount of time to work on. We had done a lot of work on this, but then there were those complications, and then Dixie got promoted, and for a while there we really didn't have anybody working on regs because Dixie had taken over her licensing and admin manager responsibilities, and there was a lag before we brought Marcus on board. So I'm making a lot of excuses here, but we have so many regs in the hopper right now, and there's all these little complications with each of them, and then staffing and resource issues. So this is one in particular that I really want to get done because it's something that the legislature, we'll probably get asked about this in some review. And, and we'll have to explain to them that the complications we've had and that we are actively working on it. And so I don't want to have to, after this year, go back to the legislature and say we haven't done it yet.
So are you saying, Spencer, that the uniform standard for substance abusing licensees and the revision to the disciplinary guidelines should be together? I mean, that makes sense.
That's correct.
And
What
so,
the boards do is they add language to the provision that incorporates the disciplinary guidelines, and they just change the titles. Uniform standard related substance abuse and disciplinary guidelines, which is typically the title.
if those were combined together, Marcus, would that make it easier for you? Would it make it easier for us?
Well, it's one less reg package.
It's one exactly.
Yeah, and so it should eliminate some of the work associated. Sometimes it complicates things because if you have controversy with one of the issues, then it ties up the other issue. So now, is there any reason why we can't do them separately? Do we have to do them together, or like what would you advise
This
me
is the
us
first
to do?
time that I was seeing 2 separate documents being prepared, other than the other
Okay.
attorney that I just mentioned,
Yeah.
whose client.
Okay,
did it that
and
way.
see, and I think that's
But
what
might
led
help
to our
one document.
confusion.
I think
Okay.
it makes sense for it to be one document because they
Absolutely.
both
Yeah,
are tied
Because
together.
during the administrative hearing, the ALJ, let's say it's a drug case, the ALJ must have the disciplinary guidelines and the uniform standards. So
Yeah.
the ALJ should not have to look at 2 separate documents. The ALJ should have just one document
Yeah.
that has it all in there. So all you would have to do now is to prepare the initial statement of reasons then? Is that where you are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
So yeah,
just to
because
clarify.
you've done a lot of the work to develop it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Then
oh, go ahead.
the next step is to prepare the initial statement of reasons and file the other documents that must that must accompany that document with the Office of Administrative Law. So that's the next step. Sometimes it can be very tedious to prepare a statement of reasons. This initial statement of reasons is going to be quite substantial because it's related to substance abusing licensees. So I think that's where you are, but there's a great deal of information on the other board's websites who
Yeah.
have promulgated, they're all promulgating the same regulations. So the boards are borrowing language contained within their initial statement of reasons. So you'll see that many of them are the same. So it's not like you have to create a new wheel or something.
And Marcus, you said we have Joanne working on uniform standards, and what is somebody working on
I'm working on the guidelines right now.
the disciplinary guidelines? So, so do you think you could give it all to her? We could talk about this offline, but I think this when he said tedious, I thought Joanne's a scientist. This is perfect for her. So,
Hey.
Not that she's tedious,
Hey.
but she likes tedious work. So, so yeah, this may be something good because it doesn't sound like there's much to figure out. We just have to
As it pertains to this discussion, I just want to point out 4.1 of our strategic plan specifically states that create a process that the board chair establishes a two-person committee per regulation proposal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
I know.
just making sure that's happening.
We're gonna talk about that
Okay.
too. So I guess we're still a little bit up in the air whether these are going to be combined or whether they're going to be separate. So I would like to.
I think
Are
it's
they
gonna be
combined?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's gonna be combined.
Oh, Marcus is shaking his head. So I would like to
We'll
hear
see.
pros and cons.
I've looked at various boards over the last 2 years that have actually had theirs approved, and most of them have actually done it separately. They've incorporated they've done one and then incorporated the other document by reference after. And so I'll sit with the executive officer and we'll figure out the best way to move forward. And we'll make it clear to you guys what we choose, which will be the most efficient path. But I've seen contrary information, so
I'd like to know which ones those are.
I'll send them to you on Monday.
Spencer. So, as Julie brought up with our strategic plan about two-person committees for each reg, can we talk about that, or do we have to do that since it's later? Since
Could we
it's
go
not
back
an
to the
agenda item?
committee,
Go back.
the committee agenda item? So let's go back to, what's
Okay.
it, number 6 or 14? What's that agenda?
It is number nine. Number nine.
Number 9, I'm sorry. So we're gonna go back to agenda item number 9 and discuss, because there's the two-person committees for regulations, and then there's also the executive committee, and I don't know if there, you want to, because since we have the executive committee and then 3 other committees, it may make sense to assign the regs to specific committees rather than create new committees, just something to
I
consider.
I think that is a good idea.
Do that.
Just for efficiency purpose, sometimes those duties are picked up by the executive committee.
And that will be Mr. Rufino and Dr. Dane, so, so whatever responsibilities you two want to pick up. Then we'll divvy the rest up among the other
What the
committees.
executive committee is the officers, so would that include Dr. Azzolino?
Well, if we keep it at two-member,
Oh.
two-member, it would be
Two-member
the chair
committee,
and
all
vice
that.
chair. If we want to make it a 3-member committee, then we'd have to, if they want to discuss board business, it'd have to be a notice meeting.
I think 2 is spectacular,
Well,
more efficient.
I think 2 is great. I don't think the executive committee should be the committee for all of these regulations. I think that the uniform standards for substance abusing licensees and the revisions to the disciplinary guidelines would neatly fall under enforcement committee. So those get to be your regs.
Yeah, I agree.
Shift some more.
We can do that after, can't we?
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be done now, you can make it.
Yeah, we don't have
Okay.
to, so we
All right.
can, I'll make recommendations to Heather to what committees to assign the various regs, and then we'll let the committees and the other board members know. And if you disagree and think this shouldn't be at your committee, just let us know.
Yeah, so we'll try to assign them to the appropriate committee. So in addition to the strategic plan, you will be assigned regulations to kind of keep track of and work with board staff about. All right. Marcus, sorry we kind of got off track, interrupted your report.
I think that was it. So, application for CE is moving. That's currently with agency under review. So we anticipate, hopefully within the next month or so, being able to submit that to OAL. CPEI again is subject to the new process, so we go through an upfront review before we can initiate the 45-day comment period. And then we are currently working on uniform standards, delegation, and the disciplinary guidelines. So that's our status update for our regulations.
So those 3 are the ones that you're actively writing things,
Yes.
working on. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Any other discussion? Any public comment? Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item number 11. Public comment for items not on the agenda. No? Okay. And we'll move on to number 12, future agenda items. If anybody has any suggestions, we can make notes of them now. If not, feel free to email Robert at any time with future agenda items.
I'd like to have somebody from the Pastoral Medical Association come and address us and tell us what their rationale and where they feel their scope is in regards to chiropractic and medicine.
Okay.
I'd like to have someone from the Pastoral Medical Association come to address the board and inform us what they believe their scope is in regard to chiropractic and medicine.
Good.
And of course, we previously discussed the idea of having somebody from the budget office.
Yes,
For the
definitely.
budget that's there too.
Yep.
Just a reminder.
Thank you. Any other future agenda items? If you think of any, feel free to email Robert, but just keep in mind about the noticing requirements for board meetings. Okay,
Can we do number 14?
we sure can.
Can we,
Want to take a,
yeah, let's take a comfort break.
Well, if we go into closed session.
Can we go into
break
closed
it.
session?
Go in closed session and take a break.
Thank you.
yeah, so
Did she?
Yes.
we're going to skip to item number 14 and go into closed session, so we can clear the room.
Do we need a motion?
So we'll probably be in closed session for at least a half hour. And actually, is the ALJ coming at noon? So actually, we won't have any public business to discuss until probably 12:30. Or when do we want to come back to the full board meeting? Like, do you want to take a lunch break after closed session, and then the ALJ and the court reporters should get here about 12 and be ready about 12:30? So we could reconvene at 12:30 for the public?
Yeah, 12:30.
Okay, so the public, you're free until 12:30. Actually, you're free right now, but if you want to come down, you're welcome.
All right, so we should take a break before we go into closed session.
Yeah, we're going to be in closed session.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just, yeah, just. All right, we're going to start with our hearings, and we have our judge here, Judge Julie Cabos Owen. Yes, so I'll let you take it over.
All right, so we do have the first petitioner coming up here. Do you have all your documents, everything, so you can refer to it while you're sitting there? You might want to bring it up, just if you have your petition and any documents. Thank you. All right, so why don't I go ahead and open the record? I'm opening the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of revoked license of Mohammed Al-Shimi. This is case number AC 2012-942 before the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. OAH number is 2017-010986. It is February 16th, 2017, approximately 12:40 p.m. And we are at the Hilton in Los Angeles, California. I am Julie Cabos Owen. I am the administrative law judge that is assigned to sit with the board, which is convened to hear this petition. And if I could just have the board members identify themselves for the record. The court reporter has the spelling of your name. I just need you to state your name for the record.
I'm Dr. Julie Elginer.
Dr. Heather Dane.
Sergio Azzolino.
Corey Lickman.
Dion McLean.
John Rosa.
And Frank Rufino.
Thank you. And if I could have the appearances of the parties for the record.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Deputy Attorney General Christine Lee appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Good afternoon. And if you could state and spell your name for us, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Mohammed Al-Shami.
All right, and you'll be representing yourself today?
Yes.
All right, so the matter before the board today is the petition for reinstatement, and that means that you have the burden of establishing that you're entitled to reinstatement of your license. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have the deputy present the jurisdictional documents first, which is the petition and the attachments, and then summarize the case, and then you'll have an opportunity to present your case. You have the right to present documents, and I understand that you have given some additional documents, which I will be marking in just a minute for the record. You also have the right to present witnesses and to testify on your own behalf.
Okay.
And if you choose not to testify on your own behalf, you can still be asked questions by the deputy and by the board members.
Thank you.
All right, so if you have any questions as we go along, just let me know. After the petition has been heard, I believe there are 2 petitions that are being heard today. Once those are heard, then the board is going to go into closed session and a decision will be issued within a few weeks.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Lee?
At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to mark for identification and offer into evidence Exhibit 1, which consists of the petition packet and attachments, which include the copy of the default decision and order effective November 9th, 2012, a copy of the accusation and petition to revoke probation dated May 30th, 2012, a copy of the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order effective January 2nd, 2011, and a copy of the statement of issues dated August 23rd, 2010.
Thank you. All right, so the petition and attachments, which I note are bait stamped BCE 1 through BCE 121, are marked collectively as Exhibit 1 for identification. And I actually, there was a memorandum that went to board members with background information. I'm just going to mark that as Exhibit 2 for identification. And then we did receive from petitioner 13 pages of rehabilitation evidence that was contained in a folder. That evidence includes some continuing education certificates, letters of recommendation, and a letter from the Alameda County Public Defender. I'm marking the documents in that folder collectively as Exhibit 3 for identification. All right, and was there anything in summary from the Attorney General's office?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to just provide the board with a brief summary of the case. On or about January 2nd, 2011, a stipulated settlement and disciplinary order was effective, resulting in 3 years probation, completion of ethics course, and compliance with all standard terms and conditions of probation. The issuance of this probationary license was based on Mr. Al-Shami sustaining convictions on or about September 21st, 2005 for violating Penal Code Sections 487A, grand theft, and 602.5, unauthorized entry of property, and on or about November 13th, 2001 for violating Vehicle Code Section 23109C, unlawful exhibition of speed. Subsequently, the petitioner violated his probation, and on May 30th, 2012, a petition to revoke probation was filed based on a conviction petitioner sustained violating Penal Code Section 550B1, presentation of a false insurance claim. Additionally, petitioner failed to report his criminal conviction on his application for a chiropractic license by marking no in response to the question inquiring about whether he had ever been convicted of a crime. The petition to revoke probation resulted in a default decision revoking his license effective November 9th, 2012.
All right. Mr. Al-Shami, now's your opportunity to present your case. We do have the documents here that have been marked for the record. Did you have any witnesses that you wanted to call?
No.
All right, and did you want to testify today?
Sure.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
And what did you want to tell us today, sir?
I mean, I'm just completely a different person now. I was young and stupid and learned from my mistakes. I went to Egypt after this decision, and I feel like that changed my life quite a bit, actually. Ended up getting married and have a baby. When I was over there, I practiced for almost a 3 years period. I was
I'm
the
sorry,
only,
how many years?
almost 3 years. I left right after this, which was 2012. Chiropractic is my passion. I just couldn't really sit here without doing anything. So I have family members in Egypt, and a lot of them have back issues, and I would always try to recommend them to go to a chiropractor. When I looked into it, I found that there's no chiropractors in Egypt, and the ones that exist, they're actually fraud. They don't have certificates. They just have advertisements. They're chiropractors, but when you go there, they're not chiropractors. I don't even think they were educated. Anyway, so I worked there for 3 years. I worked in a hospital, and then ended up being really successful. So we ended up opening up another clinic. Fortunately, after a while, the events just kept getting worse. The hospital I was working at got bombed literally like an hour from when I was in the hospital. We would have shootings outside sometimes where I would have to move my chiropractic bench away from the windows. It was just very humbling experience. We take a lot of things. I took a lot of things when I lived here for granted, like having electricity all the time, or even clean water. So it was a life-changing experience for sure, and I feel like I'm a changed man from it. I did spread chiropractic over there, and I feel like I didn't misrepresent the profession when I was there. I did everything, to the best of my knowledge, and I have a lot of testimonials from my patients, but they're in Arabic, so I didn't know if I should bring them. If you want, I can always bring those as well. A lot of testimonials that I got from my friends and colleagues. Some of them even work for the chiropractic college. Some of them even are involved in the boards. I'm always known to at least bring a smile to people's face for my hard work, and also for, not misrepresenting the profession. I did make mistakes. There were personal mistakes. Some of them were involved in my personal automobile insurance. And to prevent any of that from happening again, I don't even get full coverage insurance on my vehicles anymore. Again, it was stupid, and I feel like the first step is recognizing that you made a mistake, so you can change the mistake. I'm just a different person. I got a baby now. I got a wife. I got 2 disabled parents that I have to provide.
Ms. Lee, did you have any questions for the witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Al-Shami, when you got back to Egypt, or when you got back from Egypt to the United States, when did you get back?
I'm sorry. September.
That's September of 2016?
2015.
So what did you do from September 2015 to now?
I've been working as a Lyft driver, as well as doing volunteer work for the chiropractic college. So I worked there as I was helping with a visual. Sorry. Can I get some water?
Yes.
I was helping out students with visual impairments. So I was technically their eyes. I did over 240 hours with them. I also did some volunteer work when I was in Egypt with the Rotary Club, and that's one of the ones that you see on the beginning of the file. So I did a lot of public speaking about chiropractic. There was a lot of ignorance about chiropractic in Egypt. No one knew about it. When I did come back, the only thing I was involved in is really volunteer work with the chiropractic college, and did a lot of continuing education courses when I came back to kind of make up for the time that I wasn't here. I just accomplished some of them online too, in the file that you have, and some of them more in person. I believe I did about 80 hours or more continuing eds, and then about 240 hours of volunteer work with the visual impaired.
And this was at the same, the volunteer work was at the same college that you graduated from chiropractic school?
Correct, yeah. And I have a lot of colleagues that are actually working at the college now. I also got offered a position to work at the chiropractic college, but I had to declare that, obviously this disciplinary action, they told me once I got this resolved and maybe get my license back, that I'd be able to go back and teach at the college. That's what I'm hoping I can accomplish as well.
And what exactly did you do as an aid for visually impaired students at Life Chiropractic College?
Literally their eyes. So when they're sitting in class, like x-rays, and the teacher is pointing at something and doesn't say the name of it, I would tell them they're pointing at the mandibular or whatever it is they're pointing at. If we're in technique class, I would do that as well. I would also go with them to the lab time and do CMR reports and help them with their reports as well and their soap notes. So literally their eyes.
And
Just what I see is what I translate.
And what compelled you to start taking continuing education courses?
Just to show that I'm still involved. Not only to show that I'm still involved, I do feel like a big part that what you take for granted is the continuing education classes here. Because when I was in Egypt, it was what you know is what you know. There's nobody. I mean, you don't have another chiropractor to talk to. There's no sources. You don't even have a book to read about techniques, or you can't go find a Gonstead book or anything else. So it was refreshing actually to come back and do some of these courses. It's a humbling experience. I mean, even the boards. I mean, having boards is a great thing because in Egypt there's just no one watching anything. You know what I mean? So that's when you get these fake chiropractors and they're not actual chiropractors because there's no government. It's absent. So I do appreciate even having the chiropractic boards.
If I can turn your attention to the letters of recommendation that you had referenced in your petition packet, are those letter writers aware of the reason for you getting the letters?
Yes, they are. A lot of them are colleagues that were with me in Life Chiropractic College. From all over the world, actually, which is really nice. I have friends in Australia, Texas, all over.
And excluding from what you've talked about today, have you received any other discipline related to your profession, both here or in Egypt?
No.
Are there any pending arrests or convictions that the board is not aware of?
No.
And why do you want to get back into the field of chiropractic?
So that's all I know. That's all I do. I mean, I invested so much time and energy in it. A lot of schooling. A lot of you are DCs.
And what kind of reassurances can you assure the board that any kind of lack of judgment or convictions like this won't occur again, should you be given a license?
For one thing, I'm responsible for family. I'm sorry. This is really stressful. I didn't think I was going to cry this much here, but I mean, it's the weight of my family and my pants on my shoulders. So it can't mess up. I can't. I just would love the opportunity to become a productive member again of chiropractic, especially in California.
I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Are there any questions from any board members? And if you have a question, if you could just identify yourself for the record before the question is asked.
Should we start with?
Sure. This is Dr. Elginer. I'm not a chiropractor, I'm a member of the public. So I have two questions for you. One is, what would be your plan to either open a practice or to rejoin or to join a practice? Are any of the individuals who provided letters of recommendation on your behalf, have they offered to allow you to work under consultation with them or supervision?
A lot of them did, yes. I also was very interested in teaching. So one of the things I was gonna do, if you grant me the second chance, is go to Live West and see if they would honor that job offer that they gave me.
So your intent primarily is for teaching purposes, not necessarily practicing purposes?
Both, if I could do both.
Both.
Yes.
My second question is on the exhibits that you provided, Bait stamp number 17 has a number of CEs that were included, and all of these contain DC after your name. I'll let you get to it.
Talking about the ones that I did in college in person?
This is from February of 2016 from Life Chiropractic, College West.
Yes.
So, just by way of clarification, are you aware that since your license has been revoked, you are no longer able to offer DC after your name?
I believe so, yeah, and that's not what my intent was.
Okay, so it wasn't an attempt to misrepresent?
No, it's probably because the college wasn't aware when I did the continuing eds that I'm under disciplinary action. So they probably just put DC because they thought I was doing continuing eds classes for.
So this wasn't something
my
you
license.
entered, that it was something that the school?
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't try to advertise myself as a DC when I'm not licensed in California.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
Thank you for
definitely.
clarification.
And hence, this is why I've been driving Lyft and Uber. I mean, how much more humbling can it be?
Thank you for clarification.
No worries.
I have a question. On
I'm
your.
sorry, this is,
Oh, I'm
Dr.
sorry,
Dane.
this is Dr. Dane. There's a page in here, it's bait stamp number 9, and it's student labs winter schedule 2016. It looks like some labs maybe at Life West.
Yes.
Are these labs that you took or labs that you were
Those are
aiding
ones that
the
was-
blind?
Yep.
Okay. So technique, diagnosis, some kind of modality in Gonstead lab, NUCA.
Yep. These
So
are elective courses that the students were taking as well.
okay, so you're a blind student's eyes companion for
Literally
these
their eyes.
classes. And this was for winter of 2016. Did you do this for any other?
No, I just
Quarters.
did it for the quarter, and
This
then
quarter.
afterwards I was offered the job with the college, and since then I just didn't go back because they wanted me to get my license.
So this is the volunteer hours?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions right now.
Are there any further questions?
Dr. Sergio Azamino, good day.
Good to meet you.
Was the school aware of your disciplinary action when they hired you?
They didn't hire me. I was doing volunteer work.
Okay, were they aware of your disciplinary action when you were
Doing the
accepted as a
volunteer
volunteer?
No, they weren't.
They were not aware of it?
No, when I did the volunteer work, it was just, I didn't feel like I needed to disclose it because I was dealing with the NINA and the administration. But I did have to disclose that information when I got offered the job, and hence why I didn't go back.
And who personally offered you that job?
I can't remember his name right now. He's a tall guy, gray hair. He's always been at the college though. I forget his name. But he was one, he's one of the administration guys. Can't remember his name right now.
Scott Donaldson?
Donaldson, there it is, Scott Donaldson.
And was he aware of your disciplinary action?
Now he is.
Okay, and I know you were already asked by the Deputy Attorney General, and I had the same question. Were the people that wrote the letters aware of your disciplinary action? Because of all the letters you provided, not one of them referenced the reason why they were writing the letter, besides being of support of you.
Most of them are writing that in order for me to get reinstated by my California, by my chiropractic license, so they are aware that I've lost my license due to disciplinary action. A lot of them are aware of it as well, because when I was in college, right when I started, I was still dealing with the probation that I dealt with in the first place, so I was still on house arrest. So I was walking around the college with my ankle bracelet on.
Okay. And lastly, you mentioned that you were young and dumb, I believe, quote unquote. How old were you when you committed this crime?
I think I was 20, 23 or something like that.
I'm sorry, which crime are we talking about?
The one that.
The very first?
The first, yes.
Oh, the very first? Yeah, I was 20 years old or younger.
And then the last?
What was that? The last one? Oh, the last one was right out of. You want the detail of the insurance thing?
As far as your age.
Oh, okay. So as far as the age, it was 26.
Okay.
25.
Thank you. No further questions.
Anything further?
Dr. Corey Lickman here. What position did they offer you?
Teaching at the Chiropractic College and being involved in the community outreach programs. So I'm really known when I worked with a lot of my colleagues as well for being good at doing spinal screening and public speaking. I don't know, just people love me. So I'm usually pretty good about interacting socially with people. When I worked with Dr. Hans Freerichs before I left, a lot of the stuff I did for him before even starting as a chiropractor was spinal screening and outreach programs. So I'd go to a lot of the elderly homes, do public speaking, help them with their memory loss and a lot of different activities and eating habits. Also, when I was working with Dr. Sean Dill with Discover Chiropractic, he was also one of the teachers at the Chiropractic College, where he had a separate clinic before he joined the health clinic for the Chiropractic College, and that's all I did for them as well, was the outreach program. So I'm pretty known for my good spinal screening skills and outreach programs, and that's what they wanted me to do, is become the public figure for them, for the outreach programs at the college.
Could you spell those doctors' names that you just noted?
Dr. Sean Dill, SHAWNDILL. He used to teach philosophy at Chiropractic College.
And then the prior doctor?
Hans Freerichs, HANUS, I believe, FREERICKS. He used to teach a program still going on right now with Dr. It's called The New Beginnings. I don't know if you guys are familiar with New Beginnings.
Yeah.
No.
I have no.
Never been in New Beginnings. It's a very successful model, but basically they do a lot of advertising, marketing. I learned a lot from him actually working the 2 years under him.
I have one more question for you. On page 22, the glow.
Yes.
Is that where you worked in Egypt?
In Egypt, yeah. That's the second clinic I was working at.
And then what are all the? I don't know what this says. But what are all the?
Oh, so the stuff in Arabic is basically the list of all the patients, because I was getting paid on a percentage as well as a salary. So these were basically my pay stubs every month or so. So they would print out the list of patients and how much they were charged. Some of them I would do also, as well as for free. I mean, depending on how bad their situation was. In Egypt, I was charging £100 a visit, which is equivalent of you paying $100 here. But then when you do the conversion rate, it's only worth like $10. Economy also got really bad since I left. I mean, I left a year ago. Now the dollar was equal to £7 when I left. Now it's equal to 20. So the same adjustment if I did for £100 would actually be equivalent to $5 now. So, and that's another reason why I needed to come back to California, because, I mean, I have to also support my disabled parents here. And when you do these conversion rates, obviously how dangerous it was over there, it was really a humbling experience. I definitely was taking things for granted here in California. And this is why I was young and stupid, because I didn't realize the golden opportunity I had.
Thank you for explaining.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Dion McLean. I just have a couple of things that I'd like for you to clarify for me. Under the continuing ed courses, you said you've taken numerous, and I see in the packet that I have here that there are courses from February, March of 2016, August of 2016, and then nothing until February of 2017. Did I miss some between August and February?
Are you talking about the file that I just handed? No, the ones previously?
Have you taken any other courses prior to this February, between August of last year and February of this year?
Probably not, because they're only offered every 3 months. To tell you the truth, they repeat themselves, so they get a little boring after a while.
Okay. Additionally, just to follow up on Dr. Elginer's question, regarding your plan, if you were to be reinstated, do you have a plan? To begin a practice?
Yes, I do have a doctor that is also one of my colleagues that's practicing right down the street from me. So I plan on renting a space from her, yes. And she said, yeah, she'd be willing to do that as well. And then become an independent contractor from there, and then as well as try to teach at the college. That's my plans.
And those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have no questions.
I have no questions.
Right, was there anything further that you wanted to add?
I mean, I believe I covered everything. I mean, I just would love a second chance, and just for the sake of my family, at least,
Was there anything further from the deputy?
I just had one question in regards to the last page of the mitigation document submitted today. Can you just explain your participation in the Clean Slate program?
Yeah, I did have to get some reference letters, and basically apply for it and attend an interview, and I got approved for it, which basically means that they take the incident off of my record. It's called the Clean Slate program. I did accomplish all my probation for that. I did pay my fines, so everything was taken care of from that end, and I also had it removed from my record.
I'm sorry, you also?
I had it removed from my record with the Clean Slate program. I mean, it's removed, it's called like a soft removal, so any job you apply for, they don't see it. But if I would become an FBI agent or something, then yeah, of course, you're gonna find it,
Were there any further questions from any of the board members? Let me just address the evidence.
Is
All
there
right, so
anything that you recommend or that maybe I didn't answer for you guys?
I think all the questions have been posed. I have exhibits 1, 2, and 3. Are there any objections?
If they're being admitted pursuant to administrative hearsay, there's no objections, Your Honor.
All right, so, well, exhibit 1 is the petition and the attachments.
Just exhibit 3, Your Honor.
All right, so exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted. Let me just take a look at exhibit 3. All right, so exhibit 3 is admitted as administrative hearsay. What that means is that they're admitted to supplement or explain the other evidence that's been admitted into evidence already.
I'm sorry, what?
It's exhibit 3, which is the packet that you just provided today, is admitted to supplement or explain what you had provided previously with your petition and attachments.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing further, then the matter is submitted and we're off the record. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, I'm going to actually get you a reporter's form. So if you want to order the transcript, you'll have a. How many pages we want?
3.
How many pages?
All pages?
45?
Thank you, guys.
Hold on, just 1 second. That's again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, and that's, this is yours and the deputy's. Thank you, sir. They're not gonna help you.
No, I know. They're not getting this, and they're not getting either one. We're done. Closed for business.
All right, why don't we go ahead and open the record in the next petition. We're opening the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of revoked license of Ryan Hallmark, case number AC 200728, before the Board of Chiropractic Examiners for the state of California. OAH number is 2017-010985. It is February 16th, 2017, approximately 1:15 p.m., and we are at the Hilton in Los Angeles, California. My name is Julie Cabos Owen, Administrative Law Judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I'm assigned to sit with the board, which is convened to hear this petition. All right, and I believe we have, if the court reporter can just note the same board members that have identified themselves for the previous petition are still present for this petition. And if I could just get the appearances of the parties for the record.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Deputy Attorney General Christine Lee, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California.
All right, and if you could please state and spell your name.
Ryan Hallmark, and spell R-Y-A-N, and the last name is H-A-L-L-M-A-R-K.
Thank you. You were present when I instructed the petitioner that was sitting for the prior petition.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you understand how the process is going to work today as far as how the evidence is going to be presented, and that you do have the burden of proving you're entitled to reinstatement?
Yes.
All right, so I won't go through all of that. I'm going to go ahead and allow the Deputy Attorney General to go through the exhibits and provide a summary.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I'd like to mark for identification and offer into evidence Exhibit 1, which consists of the petition and attachments, which consists of the copy of the default decision and order effective September 14th, 2009, and a copy of the accusation dated June 12th, 2009.
All right, that document described by counsel, or those documents, which consist of date stamp pages 1 through 16, are marked as Exhibit 1 for identification. I do note there was also a memorandum to board members giving background information about this petition. That was marked as Exhibit 2 for identification. And today there were additional exhibits that were offered by the petitioner. They consist of the following: a motion to reduce misdemeanor and to expunge, an order of withdrawal of the felony plea, an order to dismiss under PC 1203.4, a copy of a court document, a court docket, a document entitled Adult Subsequent Action Disposition Information, as well as an amended document by the same title, and a physician's statement, a summary of job history, and copies of various book covers. Those documents are marked collectively as Exhibit 3 for identification. And did you have anything in summary?
Yes, Your Honor. Respondent was licensed May 8th, 1998 as a chiropractor. On or about June 12th, 2009, the board filed an accusation based on Mr. Hallmark's conviction violating Health and Safety Code Section 11358, unauthorized cultivation, harvesting, or processing of marijuana. The circumstances were that on or about January 4th, 2007, 339 marijuana plants were located and seized, along with approximately 1 pound of processed marijuana, a marijuana business plan, and $800 cash from Mr. Hallmark's home. Mr. Hallmark admitted that he was growing marijuana for his personal use and for resale. As a result of the conviction, Mr. Hallmark was sentenced to 3 years probation and ordered to pay fines. Effective September 14th, 2009, Mr. Hallmark's license was revoked as a result of a default decision after Mr. Hallmark failed to appear at hearing. On or about November 5th, 2015, petitioner submitted his petition for reinstatement to the board.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hallmark, now's your opportunity to present your case. We do have the documents that I've just marked for the record. And did you have any witnesses that you wanted to testify?
Oh, no, ma'am.
All right, and you wanted to testify today?
Yes, ma'am.
If you could please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And what did you want to tell us today, sir?
Well, I brought some information here about the result of the case and what I've done since. So hoping to dialogue a bit to explain some of the reasons for this as the questions arise, of course. Let's see. As far as the exhibits go that I brought, the no contest plea was entered and then removed replaced with a not guilty plea as far as the motion 17B agreement read. And so I've gone prior to the date of this case and after without any any additional legal problems. And so I did want to include the physician's statement. It was certainly my mistake to put myself in a situation like this. I based my understanding that I was in compliance with the law based on hearsay from the medical doctor. I was shocked and mistaken for that. The physician based his recommendation on congenital low back instability that I have. It's a lumbarization, hemivertebrae, and a unilateral spatulated damophyset.
Could you spell that for the record with the court report, please?
I'm sorry to spell which?
The terminology that you just used.
Yeah, lumbarization, Lumbarization, which means an extra lumbar vertebra, hemivertebra, so it's not fully formed. It's not symmetrical. And the facet is you have a unilateral spatulation, otherwise known as a demifacet, on one side as well. And I can spell spatulated S-P-A-T-U-L-A-T-E-D.
Thank you.
Yes. In addition, I'm sorry, it was also based on GI distress, stomach and bowel. The reasons for my seeking the medical statement in the first place was an exacerbation to my low back pain. I went specifically to this company to discuss the options because I didn't want side effects of prescription medication. I didn't want the addiction issues. And I'd also researched enough to find out that there was a form of this medical marijuana that decreased any mental effects and as well as decreased pain. And so there's a very specific percentage of ingredients, I should say, that I was after, and that didn't change the law either. So I wanted to offer that into the record. Moving on from there. Following that incident, I've been working with sports teams, high school, and then prior to those events, and after that I had moved up to semi-professional football, sports training, assisting the coach and so forth with the defensive group. And in addition, I've been working alongside of law enforcement with security jobs, and then of course I've moved up to executive protection agent with one of the oldest security investigation companies in America. I'm really wanting to start another practice. I believe it's my calling. I've rehabilitated my spine. I've also spent time, even though it was not court ordered for any drug rehabilitation, there was no addiction issues. There were no complaints about me practicing under the influence or anything like that. I did attend a one-year men's co-therapy group called Breakthrough, and that's in Monterey County. Also, nonviolent communication, conflict resolution courses, and of course have kept my nose clean since then. I knew it was a mistake when it happened, and have not looked back since then. I have included details. Of course, it's a little bit more like a resume. The job I do now is just dangerous. I wear a bulletproof vest to work now, and I'd like not to do that. I believe my calling is to be a chiropractor. It's my joy and my love since 19 years old. The literature that I've read since my application to today, not including anything before, have to do with practice management, stories of how people have made a comeback after disasters to their career, soft tissue, sports training, physiotherapy, and of course how to build a practice, how to be speakers bureaus, and of course a pathology book. One thing that I know that I was naive about was, of course, having to do with being naive and being talked into things. Now, of course, this is my decision to have done this, but I based it on some pretty naive pretense. And I got a lot of information out of a psychological book that really helped open my eyes to wise up a bit about that. And so my favorite part of practice is seeing the lights turn on in people's eyes, seeing the shine come back in their eyes when they really get the big idea, get the feeling of that their body can heal itself, that they can actually improve naturally. And it's been very painful to live without being in that role. I hope for nothing more than to spend the rest of my years adjusting patients and living a nice, quiet, sane, healthy, clean and sober life. And that's all I have from my end.
Do you have any questions for Liz?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Hallmark, you had mentioned in your petition packet that you'd been volunteering for ankle taping with the semi-professional football team. Are there any other activities or things that you do with this particular football team?
Also, well, as far as the sports training goes, we'll stretch, pull injured players off the field, brace, of course tape like I mentioned, clean up injuries, disinfect and so forth, and make a basic assessment on a level of emergency. Now, these are adults, of course, and then given the opportunity, refer them for medical care, possibly even emergency care, depending on the severity of the injury. I also assisted the coach with defensive back coaching some of the players and fitness and such.
And this is something that you do on the side after your full-time position as the executive protection security
This is
assistant?
just weekends. This would be just in the day during the weekends, and it's the spring and beginning of summer season only, and it's been about 7 seasons now with 2 different teams.
When was your last chiropractic related job?
2009.
And how long did you work at that particular position?
Location or position?
Position.
Well, let's see, that office was, let's see, 2 or 3 years at that location.
And it was a solo practice?
It was a group practice. About every office I've worked in has been multidisciplinary, multi-practitioner practice.
Mr. Hallmark, you didn't submit any continuing education classes or any refresher courses. How familiar are you with the new advances in any chiropractic technology or equipment that you can assure the board that should you be given a license that you would be familiar with newer methods, newer techniques, things like that?
Well, of course, I have no intention of using any particular mechanical devices for practice. As far as the new techniques, I wouldn't know new techniques. Was very adept at the techniques that I employed throughout my career prior to that. I was a teacher's assistant for postgraduate certification courses for 12 years during the course of my over the course of my career.
Is there a particular reason why you decided not to do any continuing education courses, be it online or in classes?
Well, yes, ma'am. I wanted to risk nothing as far as my reinstatement, and I didn't want to put myself out as a chiropractor. That wouldn't have been accurate, or a doctor, a DC. It wouldn't have been accurate to call myself a student. And I couldn't rectify myself to how to enter into a course without using a license number that I no longer had.
Should you be given a license, should you be given your license back, what are your intentions in terms of getting a chiropractic job?
Well, I would associate in an existing practice for a period of time, not only to build my practice, but also to familiarize myself with office procedures and billing, of course. Again, I would say if I'm rusty at anything, it would be billing codes. It had been quite a while before I left practice that I changed just to cash. So I'm definitely not current on billing codes. I feel very confident, I'm sorry, with my palpation skills and my motor skills and so forth as far as freshening back up to speed, my techniques.
And if I can turn your attention to Exhibit 3, which you had provided to the board before this hearing, it's your understanding based on what's been marked as A6 and A7, it appears that you had marked these documents yourself, that particular conviction that you had sustained has now been expunged?
Yes, ma'am. And if I may comment on that, it was explained to me by the court clerk who handed me these documents specifically. And the only thing that I've marked on the copies that you see is the page identifier at the very bottom, A1 through 7, and of course my signature in 2010 is on A2. So it was explained to me by the court clerk that what the judge did in this case was reopen my existing case, entered a not guilty plea in place of the no contest, reduced it from a felony to a misdemeanor, and once again entered not guilty in place of the no contest, and then he declared case was dismissed. And the clerk said that this is what she had on in her file that would reflect that.
Are there any pending arrests or convictions or any other discipline that the board should be aware about after this last conviction?
Any pending? No, ma'am.
And what reassurances can you give to the board that these kinds of missteps or lack of judgment actions won't occur again should you be given a license?
Well, as I've demonstrated prior to and since then, I want absolutely nothing to do with this substance, the culture involved with it, the use of it, the prescription of it. I also take nobody's word for granted at this point. I tend to do my own homework at this from now. Since then.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Dr. Julie Elginer, and I just want to better understand the supplemental materials you provided. What's marked B1 is a physician statement
Yes,
from
ma'am.
Dr. Michelle Brown.
Yes.
am I understanding this was the prescription that that was authorized to you in or on or about 2009, 10, something like that? Is that correct? This says that this was valid until,
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This was valid through that date. And of course, I don't simply have the patient file. I put in a request for that.
No.
And I believe it's in archive.
So so you were convicted of growing 339 marijuana plants, seizing 1 pound of processed marijuana and a business plan, as well as $800 cash. And am I understanding that you felt as though you were allowed to do that because you had a prescription?
Yes, ma'am, and in part. The stipulation is that I was, the conversation that I had with the sheriff that day was that had I had any extra, then I would have gone to a club, a dispensary. And I believe that they based their conviction on that. It wasn't the number of plants. It wasn't that it did not exceed the law, the legal amount at that time. They based the amount that you could cultivate and by square footage and not by numbers. We're talking about they pretty much counted everything that was there, and it was in the allowed legal space.
Okay. And so now your statement is that you no longer want to be associated with it, you don't, regardless of whether you have a prescription, what the legality of it, your position now is that you are completely disavowing association with the marijuana culture, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, for many years.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes. Dr. Heather Dane, questions for you, Mr. Homework.
Yes,
So when when answering questions here today, you said that you didn't take any continuing education seminars because you didn't want to represent that you were a licensed chiropractor?
Yes, that's my main reason. I was also told by Ms. Matthews that based on the revocation by default, that there was no requirement to do this as well.
In your written statement that you submitted, which is Bates stamp number 3,
Yes,
it says you haven't been able to afford CE courses, which is why you hadn't taken any.
well, this was also true.
So, to your knowledge, on average, how much does a CE course cost?
$300.
Okay. And where, if you were looking for a CE course, where would you look to find out that information?
I would start with the Chiropractic College website,
Okay.
or perhaps even the board website, but I would start with the Chiropractic College website.
And so as far as you know, the average CE course is $300?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a guess to me.
You said that you're working currently with law enforcement
Alongside of law enforcement, yes.
as security personnel? What?
Yes, that's right.
Doing security for what?
Well, I work for Pinkerton Investigations. We do counter surveillance, primarily for a third party. And we work within the county and city jurisdiction of the local police, and we're in communication with them approximately 3 times a day, and would be more so if we had things to report.
Doing camera surveillance on?
Counter surveillance.
Oh, counter surveillance.
Yes.
And is this job physical in nature?
This particular job is not physical in nature.
Okay. And you had testified that you had rehabilitated your spine from when you had a significant medical problem and were given a medical marijuana card?
That's right.
And how did you rehabilitate your spine?
Slowly, and it took me a lot of time to get back in the gym, a lot of soft tissue work, and I went through a lot of exacerbations in the meantime. But it feels great. I'm almost as strong as I was when I hurt it.
How did you hurt it?
It flared up by moving houses.
Okay. And you testified that you have a hemivertebra in there?
Yes.
A true hemivertebra in your back?
Yes.
And you've rehabilitated that?
Well, it's certainly not bilaterally symmetrical as far as my range of motion. I do have to be very careful of that.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, other questions?
Yes, Dr. Sergio Azzolino. I just wanted some clarity here. You testified that you believed growing 339 plants was allowable for personal use?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. And then you also had informed law enforcement that some of these plants were used for resale. Is that correct?
Specifically for a dispensary. But
That you were selling to the dispensary, or were you donating?
Well, that was my misunderstanding. Had I simply planned on donating them, then I don't believe I would have broken the law.
Okay. And then you also stated that you had extensively studied the medicinal qualities of marijuana?
No, sir, not extensively, but I'd learned the difference between THC and CBD content. And I'm certainly no expert.
Okay, and what ratios were you attempting to achieve for pain reduction qualities between CBDs and THC?
Well, I simply shopped around for the lowest THC and the highest CBD possible. I'm not familiar with ratios, with percentages. I'm definitely not an expert.
Okay, and is your understanding that you could achieve a medicinal quality of a high enough CBD count with smoking marijuana, or was there another form that you were trying to utilize for that?
Possibly consuming it through the digestive tract as well. Yeah, so those two ways.
So how were you utilizing marijuana then medicinally? Were you smoking it? Were you eating it?
Yes, a bit of both.
Okay, and were you obtaining anything from the dispensary, or was it all your self-use of what you were growing yourself?
Yes, it was just myself. I did belong to a dispensary and really wanted to provide it to myself instead.
Okay, and were you practicing at the time that you were growing these plants?
I was just starting a practice because I'd relocated.
And besides the $800 cash, how much income were you deriving from these 339 plants?
Well, none. In fact, the only money that I had gotten from them was from a housemate who was essentially chipped in.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Any further questions?
No questions from me.
I do. My name is John Rosen.
Hello.
I thought I read in here somewhere where you were supposed to appear to some kind of a hearing and you didn't show. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is part of the record.
And then what was the reasoning behind that?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because at the time that the board had mailed letters to my office, at that time I was just starting with an associate in San Jose. So I had my license there, my table there, my diploma there, everything was there. And within the first couple of weeks, there was a job offer to do a 2-month locum for a chiropractor in Santa Cruz County who had suffered from a stroke. And so I went for about 2 months to work there. And in that period of time, those letters arrived to the office in San Jose. And it is unknown to me why my associate and friend of 17 years had returned the mail twice without just simply making a phone call to me. During that time as well, I should add that I was also returning to his office about once a week to write reports for him. So that was either done by mistake on his part or some other reason that I can't explain. But I would not willingly have missed my hearing date. This was something that I called as soon as I found out and begged for one.
Yeah.
Yes.
When did you attend USD?
USD. This would have been 91 through 93.
Like ball there?
Football?
Yeah.
No, I was a surfer at that time, and I did play intramural football and so forth.
That's my own body.
Oh, good to hear. Good to hear. It's a beautiful
No more
campus.
questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anything further?
No questions.
Did you have anything to add?
Oh, I just want to thank you guys for hearing me today and dealing with my nervousness and preparation skills. I do look forward to joining you in practice. I hope that it works out.
Ms. Lee, did you have anything in follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
Can I just ask a question? You're a security guard. Do you have a license? Are you licensed through the Bureau?
Yes, ma'am. It's a G-rated card, power to arrest as well.
When did you get that license?
That license, let's see, I'm on my second license. It's good for 2 years each, so 4 years ago. Prior to that, I was working in the nightclub, restaurant, bar environment, and was not asked to obtain one. It was only when I wanted to get the heck out of that environment.
And just to clarify, which bureau do you have the license through?
Do you mind if I look quickly in my wallet so I know for sure?
Your Honor, if I may mention, we did do that search. It's the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services.
All right, I just want to clarify it is through BSIS.
Oh, I believe that it is. It's DCA.
Okay, Bureau of Security and Investigative Services.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And that was 4 years ago.
I believe so.
Do any of the board members have any follow-up with regard to that?
I'd simply like to ask, are they aware of your prior conviction?
Who's that?
The licensing agency for your current license.
Sir, I have no idea.
Did you
They do. I did have to reapply. Since then, they do run prints every 2 years, and the prior conviction doesn't interfere with the G card status, only with firearm possession, and so forth, like a CCW or an exposed. So I am unarmed.
Further questions?
Anything further? Did you have anything to follow up?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so let me just address the exhibits. All right, do you have any objection to exhibits 1 or 2?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted. And do you have any objection to exhibit 3?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted. I believe that addresses the evidence, so the matter is submitted and we're off the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you
Just
very
get
much.
you your court reporter form.